person and via Zoom at Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dighton, Mass. Public input may be provided using the following methods. Contact our office at Board of Selectmen at Dighton-ma.gov to provide input prior to the meeting, or join as via Zoom or in person. This is also going to be continually played on Channel 9 and on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Town of Dighton. This meeting is being recorded. The listing of matters are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Please call to order for the Selectmen.
Mark Pacheco, present.
And Peter Karen, present.
Recording in progress.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you guys have to open your meeting? No?
There's only one commissioner, so.
Okay.
We need to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start right in with Wooden and Covered. How are you guys?
Great, thank you.
Good.
I think we're gonna get a presentation up.
Okay, we're gonna turn around, my friend.
So you also have packets in front of you.
Yep.
Click on it. Yeah, right there. Thank you. And then I'll give this to you so you can change. And if you guys don't mind going it out. And then actually, minimize.
Oh, okay.
See that, right there? Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Close.
Switching teams here.
There you go. You're too tall.
So thank you for all agreeing to join us here tonight. I appreciate everyone's time. My name is Mike Head. I'm a client manager with Woodard & Curran. Worked with Mike Mullen way back when we first started scoping this project. Worked with him on the grant application to get that pulled through. So I've been on board since the beginning. I really just want to stress this has been a true collaboration between Woodard & Curran, our partner Rath Tellis, financial consultants, but with the town of Dighton and Dighton Water District as well. And Ernie, thanks for all your feedback on as we progress through here. So it's been a real pleasure to work on this project because I think the different entities all came together with a common goal, and it was really fun to kind of see happen. So just a quick stop through the agenda. Really want to hit the background just to kind of refresh everybody's memory of what this entailed and what we are seeking to do. Look at the existing conditions of everything really, including some neighboring water supply interviews. Kind of look at the alternatives that could be identified for further evaluation and the evaluation of those alternatives, and then bring it home with some recommendations. With the background, again, this was a study between the town and the water district, and really was to explore the ways that we could strengthen the planning coordination between the two entities, look at ways to potentially find efficiencies, not only in asset management, but also in the facility management and staffing and personnel and that kind of thing. We started the project at the end of March and had a kickoff meeting with all the entities to really get the ball rolling. We had a list of just some initial thoughts and information gathering requests that we had put out to start that. So we've been really going full time since the end of March in looking at all this. And just again a reminder, this is funded by the Community Cabinet's Fiscal 23 Efficiency and Regionalization Grant Program. So specifically for this type of evaluation to look at ways that people can, communities can come together and find ways to get better and stronger and do it more efficiently. So I think with that, no, one more slide for me, then I'll hand it off to Zach. Our study really started with the inventory of existing conditions, organizationally and operationally. We wanted to understand the ground floor before we started looking at moving the pieces and moving boxes around. We wanted to understand what really was the starting point. So that was a big push at the beginning, was to really understand those, not constraints, but just conditions of the start. So we also wanted to become familiar with the potential for neighboring communities and looking at water supply from those communities, Somerset, Taunton, others. So it was really just getting our feet grounded in that, through that lens, to see kind of where we could start from. We looked at, as you can imagine, there's a lot of data that came in because, operationally and organizationally with both entities, Dighton Water and the town of Dighton, and where those kind of potential overlaps came in. There was a lot of data to sift through and kind of carve out. So that was the starting point, but that led to the alternatives that we looked together. And at the very beginning of the process, there was nothing was off the table. We just looked at everything and kind of narrowed that down to a handful of potentially feasible ways to find efficiencies and find regionalization ideas, and those are the alternatives that really got a deep look, a deep evaluation, and there was a lot of back and forth between the town and Dighton Water on that, as well, as we kind of carved out and just verifying, did we get this right, and making sure we had everything in the ducks in a row. So, and then of course the goal here was to find recommendations that we could kind of put forth that are implementable and that give you meaningful results and a look ahead to a future. So I was remiss when I started talking. I didn't introduce anybody from us, so I'm going to take a step back and do that now. With me tonight from Woodard & Curran is Zach Aronson, who is our kind of engineer leading the charge on this. Carissa Mack, who worked alongside with Zach to really get her hands dirty and get in there to get the nuts and bolts figured out. Dave Fox from Raftellus, financial consultants, is with us. He looked at all the financial considerations and all of the organizational work. And then on the phone with us are Dan Scott, who's our project manager for Woodard & Curran, and Todd Prokop, who's our technical lead for the project. So as the technical alternatives, or alternatives that included any kind of technical component, Todd stepped in and kind of directed the traffic on that one. So sorry about that, folks, my bad. But with that, I'm going to hand the reins over to Zach to continue on.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Mike, thanks for the introduction. Might be a little faster than Mike. He's got a good cadence, me not so much. So try. If you need me to slow down, let me know. Again, I'm Zach Aronson. I'm a project manager with Woodard & Curran, focusing in drinking water supply. And I'm going to go through the slides, really the back half of the agenda that we went through, that Mike went through. So keep them up right here on the screen. So this process began with a inventory of the existing conditions of the town, from a organizational, operational, and technical and financial perspective. So we completed a formal data request that was disseminated to town personnel and district personnel on March 8th, 2024. But it was not only completed by a data request, we also held interviews, one specifically held in this room with folks from various town offices. That was a town-only section, town collector, accountant, Mike, and several others where we were able to gather information, Mr. Tom Ferry, all those folks. And then on the same day, later at the district office, we had a meeting with the district to gather a lot of their additional information. And we've worked with the district on a number of projects, so we had some data ourselves, but just to dive in on a little more of the existing practices and how they operate on a day-to-day. In addition to the existing conditions within the town and district, we also wanted to understand what were the outside water supply sources in the area as a crucial sort of element, and that was identified as part of the project kickoff in March. So we ended up holding interviews from April 24 to May 2024 with the city of Taunton and their water department, Aquaria Water LLC, and the town of Somerset. The summaries of those interviews and collection of existing conditions was disseminated to the town and district on May 21st, 2024, sort of give an outline and buy-in on conditions that we've collected and make sure we had a representative understanding of what's going on for each system. So the conditions assessment. This portion was also at a high level included in the memorandum that was disseminated on May 21st. From an organizational perspective, the two entities, the town and the district, and I'm going to refer to the district as district often, so as the main district in town, are organized in a sufficient manner and typical of similar sized towns and water systems within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We ran through all the organizational practices and didn't find anything substantive on different practices that should be done underneath those two as an organization. From an operation and technical perspective, we really focused on the infrastructure needs here for the district. The district has a draft water system master plan that they've been following since it was instituted. It was a master plan that was conducted by environmental partners and really goes through the items that are necessary to sustain the water system over the years, or over the next few years, address certain high service levels, areas, and things like that. And so the district's current plan is to continue and follow that water system master plan. But we also found some new issues that we wanted to highlight as part of this is, disinfection byproducts formation within the distribution system is something that Ernie and his team have been constantly working over the last year. There are some short-term solutions, but eventual long-term solutions might need to be implemented. And then also per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, forever chemicals. You've probably heard some of this stuff. Couple of the district's well sites have tested over the new, and I want to make this clear, newly promulgated MCL, US EPA MCL for a couple of the substances. Those tests were done in 2021 and 2022. At the time, we're all met every standard. This MCL is new, and there is a long implementation period associated with. Well, in 2027 is when it really starts. But just to be clear, that eventually those will be things that have to be addressed at the district's treatment plant. So that is another consideration. And then what we found is that day-to-day operations between the town and district are working really well. The town and district, town operations between the fire department, highway department, police department are coordinated very well with the district, and include a methodology for cost sharing and planning. An improved method for cost sharing and planning of capital improvements could be improved upon. That was one area where we could see it could be improved upon. In terms of financial perspective, both the town and district operate in a financially sufficient manner, and we'll let Dave get into this a little bit, but considering all the improvements associated with the water district, there are going to need to be some rate increases as part of future water improvements. Just like any improvement, money doesn't come out of nowhere, so that needs to be looked at. And then coordination between the town and district on collections is currently being performed sufficiently. So that's a high-level overview of the assessment we did on the existing conditions from an organizational, operations, and financial perspective. A summary of the neighboring water supplies. I'm going to just go through each one and give some high-level points here. The city of Taunton utilizes 11 million gallons per day of their 14 million gallon per day treatment plant capacity. There's interest in selling water to whoever they can sell water to. There are 2 existing interconnections to the Dighton system, one on Somerset Ave and the other at the Route 44 and William Street intersection. And currently the city of Taunton has 4 agreements to sell water with other public water suppliers. Aquaria includes, oh, I'm sorry. Talking too much. Aquaria, the cost of the water includes a fixed water availability and volumetric usage charge. And what that means really is that any water that they commit to another public water supplier, there's a base fee whether you use it or not. And then there's the actual usage fee, and that's based on how many gallons or how many cubic feet you use in that time period. They are obligated to provide 3.31 MGD to the city of Brockton, and that is at whenever they request. So any additional capacity would have to be expanded at the treatment plant. There could be a situation where something could be worked out with the city of Brockton, where Brockton gives up that request, but that was not looked into as part of this study. The last thing to note on this one is that no water can be supplied from April 25th through June 8th due to withdrawal restrictions from the Water Management Act permitting office. So that's another one regarding Aquaria. And then lastly, Somerset, town of Somerset, utilize approximately 2 million gallons per day of their 6 million gallons per day available treatment capacity. And has an agreement under negotiation with the town of Swansea to provide 1 million gallons per day. They are also interested in selling water by their treatment plant capacity numbers and through our interview process as well. They have existing infrastructure in Dighton along Route 138 from the Somerset line to Brook Street and to the Brook Street well source, and have identified that they would like to sell or decommission that well site in the near future. It's becoming an operating, they're not using it. They're all the water that's coming from there is coming from the Somerset Reservoir. So through that interview, that's what they really showed, that they're either want to sell or decommission in the next few years. So those are the existing conditions in the water supply interviews we held. The water supply alternatives development came from those the existing conditions review and the neighboring water supply. So alternative 1 considers a no action scenario where the district still meets their water system master plan, follows through with that, and also addresses PFAS and DBPR issues as they need. And I will speak to all these alternatives consider a DBPR improvement at the William Street tank. So that is synonymous across all the alternatives. Alternative 2 is purchase the Brook Street well from Somerset. And that considers, when we get into that one later, it's what you're gonna have to consider is there's also an issue with PFAS levels under the new MCL associated with the Brook Street well. And then alternative 3, supply from Taunton, which considers a 1 MGD source from Taunton at both interconnection sources when we were looking at them, and then we did some modeling to determine which one would be the most sufficient currently and what that would look like in terms of improvements. And then similarly for Somerset, we looked at some where that best connection would be and the modeling associated with it. The thing to note here is that both alternative 3 and 4 were considered at wholesale sources for the town of Dighton. So it did not look at, for the Dighton Water District. So it didn't look at taking a portion of what from its current sources and sourcing it one way, just to keep it clean and understand what what supply was available and how it would affect operations, you know, having a treatment plant, not having a treatment plant, and so on and so forth. So alternative one, no action. As I mentioned, it considers following the district's water system master plan and accounting for new compliance with PFAS and DBPR. The major pros is there's no major changes to district's existing O&M practices and budget. The only change would really be that around PFAS, treatment. The district would control all of its water sources within the town. And in terms of cons or negatives, water supply capacity and town development limitations. As we know, in the district service area, there's currently a development moratorium. Only a certain number of lots are available. So that sort of would keep this going as it is currently. And then again, likely will require PFAS treatment at the district's water treatment facility. Jeez, not talking about waste. The next slide is just an overview of the costs. And I don't want to dig too much into these. These can be seen more easily in the report. But what I wanted to demonstrate here is that there are a number of costs here that are proposed, 4 or so, some planning level, some actual construction level. But most of these costs are associated with the water system master plan. And we worked with the district as part of this project to understand what's been completed, what hasn't been completed as part of the master plan as it stands right now. Transitioning to the next slide. I know it's a lot of information there, but to the next slide, we looked at the district's O&M line items and our budget, and really tried to understand would there be increases on any of these costs. And as part of a no action alternative, the only real change here is PFAS related repair and maintenance. So we see a 5% increase to the district's estimated O&M costs. So these O&M items are chemicals, electricity, lagoon testing, well testing, other things like that. So as a no action, you're going to see more of the same. Alternative 2 is purchase the Brook Street well. This alternative is one that would be in conjunction with this existing system and provide. And it's approximated that the Brook Street well can provide about a half MGD raw water capacity. Increased. So you would have increased raw water production as part of the advantages of this. And the district, again, controls all of its water sources. There's a 3.5, as part of this alternative, and I'll show you on the next slide as part of the figure here, because of the PFAS issues associated with the Brook Street well as it currently stands on historical data, there would either need to be treatment system at the Brook Street well, or there could be implementation of piping into the existing raw water pipe network that runs from the Cedar Street area up to Walker Street and near the Taunton line. So we opted for the latter because although they're actually pretty similar in cost to implement a PFAS treatment plant and a 3.5 mile pipeline, the O&M cost associated with treating the water at one location as opposed to multiple locations, as you could probably figure, is less. So that's why we opted for that as part of this work. The other con, as I understand it, is the cost associated with buying not only the well site but the land around it, so that the district can own the land and get its zone that it needs. And then just increase O&M costs for additional water that the district is producing and PFAS treatment. So if we look at the next slide, it can really illustrate what that raw water pipe network would be. The green is the approximate location of the existing raw water piping network that the district currently owns. The purple is the proposed new raw water piping that would tee directly into the existing line and run water from the Brook Street well to the existing treatment facility right off Williams Street. Some other information on here, including where the Cedar Street well field is, where the Walker Street well field is, where the Elm and William Street tanks are. As part of this alternative, and first one I failed to mention, first alternative's cost was approximately, for estimated capital costs, including what was shown on the Dighton Water System Master Plan through 2039, is estimated to be 39 million. 39.6 million more specifically. And then as part of this one, this is the highest alternative, really namely because the well site purchase costs and having to install that raw water main, it's 52.8 million through 52.8 million through 2039. So just be aware that this isn't like all upfront costs, this is through 2039 as an estimated cost. In terms of O&M budget, we are looking at a higher PFAS-related repair and maintenance, some additional costs for chemicals, electricity. So you see a total approximate increase to the existing O&M budget, which is the fiscal year 23-24 budget for the district, to 19%. And while we're on the topic of Somerset, we're skipping alternative 3 here for a sec. So alternative 4 is supply from Somerset, as opposed to purchasing the Brook Street well from Somerset. This is a wholesale supply scenario from the town of Somerset. So utilize existing interconnections. So there are 2 existing interconnections to the district system. One that's newly installed as part of the Main Street replacement project to a 12-inch, it's a 12 by 12-inch connection from the existing water main within, for the Somerset's water main within Dighton that runs to the Brook Street well. And it tees into the existing, it's off right now because it's just an emergency interconnection as it currently stands. And for a potential supply of up to 1 MGD or greater. As I mentioned earlier, at treatment plant capacity level, the town of Somerset thinks they have, or approximates they have 3 MGD treatment plant capacity. So there's a little bit of nuance there in terms of Water Management Act permitting and interbasin transfer, but in a wholesale supply scenario, not using the Walker Street well field, which is in the Taunton River Basin, would end up being, the district could source potentially more water. And similarly to Brook Street, which is also in the Taunton River Basin, if those sources are no longer utilized, they can go to an extra withdrawal that potentially Dighton could, or the district could pull in a wholesale supply area.
Max daily usages for water?
For what we use 1.06.
1.06.
Yeah, that's what we used as a max day. That's the last 3 years when we were modeling these scenarios. We're looking at a max day of 1.06, and that's the most going back to 2020. That's when you used them. Since then, 2021, 2022 have not been close to that. I think the highest since that time was 0.85, or I might be a little off, but off the top of my head, that's about where the current max day has been based on annual statistical report information that the district has. No problem.
When you speak of Taunton and Somerset and the available water, 2 million gallons per day, that's excess.
That's excess.
Okay.
Yep. So that's considering, and again, this is all these interviews and things that we were done. These are to gauge interest with these communities. There's more study that has to be done outside of this one, or outside of just having them done. They're going to want to know what their engineer says, and there's going to need to be a study that shows the hydraulic capability to make that happen. But generally identifying that source is available and they have the capacity. You don't, usually a lot of people are taxed, right? And you have they know they don't have water, or they're right at operating on the brink. When you're trying to sell water, you make it known, and both these communities made it known.
Thank you.
Through the interviews, at least. So the real advantage there, and I gotta flip this slide, sorry. Real pro here is that for the Somerset connection at least, there's like I said, there's an existing connection to a 12-inch main that runs all the way down Main Street, connects onto a 10-inch main on William Street, and really what that means is you have good hydraulic connection between a potential source and the William Street tank, which for all intensive purposes is the controlling pressure system in the Dighton Water District system. When that's full, that's where we want to be, and this having a good connection there is great, and it's brand new. We did do some modeling as part of this, and observed that there would need to be a pumping system between the Somerset system and the Dighton system to fill that William Street tank. So there is some cost associated with that master meter installation, because you got to meter the water that you would pay for in this case, and then pumping it as well. The big thing also pro as part of the Somerset connection is that their PFAS levels, as currently promulgated by US EPA, are below the 4 parts per trillion for POFS and POFA, which are some of the problem chemicals that we were having with earlier. That's under anything that's been currently promulgated by United States EPA or Mass DEP.
Excuse me, Zach?
Yeah.
Somerset has a THM issue too.
TTHM issue. Yeah, so that's why this alternative still considers that aeration in the tank. Right. Yep. No, thanks, Ernie. Yeah, that's why it's across the board on all of these alternatives, especially when you're a consecutive system, right? And you're getting supplied water. You're taking water from one treatment plant all the way to another. It's always, we thought it would be wise to keep that TTHM capital improvement as part of any work in each alternative. So total capital cost through 2039 with those costs is $32.2 million. This is the least of the alternatives. But one big thing to notice, and we'll go through the O&M costs, is that there's a 102% potential 102 increase in the existing O&M budget, and that really heavily relies on the rate that is secured as part of any alternative. We assumed the retail rate, which we discussed in the meeting, was $6.50 per 1,000 gallons, but that would be something that would have to be refined to really make this alternative worthwhile in the future, right? Because $6.50 per 1,000 gallons for a wholesale rate is, it's a good fee. So, switching it to the next page, you can see the location of the existing interconnection along Main Street and Route 138 or Somerset Ave. And then a potential location for a meter pit / pumping station on a town-owned parcel along Route 138. Again, the idea here is, if you can see here, there's a blue line. That's the Somerset main. So from that point north is where you would see that would all transition to the district. Obviously, this doesn't consider the Brook Street well, but that whole main would become live to that point because you have a wholesale pit there. The next is the capital cost, estimated capital cost associated with this alternative. We took a look at this and determined what may need to come off based on in this case, we would not have a treatment facility need because it's a wholesale supply, just keeping that in mind. So we took a look at some of the alternatives, the items from the master plan that would come out as part of this alternative implementation. And then also the new costs associated with it, which are namely that meter pit and pumping station, and then the aeration TTHM removal as part at the William Street tank. Like I said, so the next slide is the O&M costs. This assumes $6.50 per 1,000 gallons at a half MGD, which is right around the average day for the Dighton Water District. And you can see here, before total annual O&M is $652,000, and then when you add in the rate, your total annual O&M is 1.84. So that's an annualized cost. And it's just something that we have to contend with over, but the alternative here is you're also looking at a much less capital cost than some of the other alternatives that we've put in. And alternative 3 is a water supply from Taunton. Again, the idea would be able to utilize one of the 2 existing interconnections for a supply up to 1 MGD. The pros here are that, again, under the current US EPA MCL that was recently promulgated in April 24, PFAS treatment would not be needed. The city of Taunton uses chloramines as a disinfectant, which is different from what the district currently uses, and it is a different operation and will require a different understanding and some different monitoring than what the district currently does. But there also could be potential DBP improvements with chloramines. So that's also a pro. This improvement, we looked at both locations. The flow value that we were given at 20 PSI, or flare flow, we worked with the City of Taunton's engineer on getting some preliminary values because the model wasn't available to us during the process. Ruled out the connection on the William Street, at least at this level. We are recommending looking at it in the future as part of the report, but really utilizing the existing pumping station. We did not perform an evaluation of that pumping station as part of this, but there would be some pumping required. And because of the localized main diameter, that's most of this in the area near the Somerset Ave and Dighton line, Dighton Taunton line, I should say. That we do recommend some water main replacement to the William Street tank as part of that. As part of this alternative, it's approximately 24,000 feet of 12-inch pipe to, again, hydraulically set up the tank with the new pumping system. And realistically, if you were to pump into that system as currently set up, you would have a pressure increase that would be unfavorable and unviable potentially. And that's sort of the modeling we did as part of this interconnection. For this, just a note on the O&M costs. We utilized the rate the North Dighton Fire District is currently paying a wholesale rate, and we see a 265% increase in O&M budget for that rate. Next slide is a figure showing the Somerset Avenue emergency interconnection, which would be the eventual interconnection point we're talking about, with the red line is the 12-inch water main to the William Street tank. And again, similar to Somerset, the estimated capital costs here are namely associated with things that take away work at the treatment plant and then implement the pumping station, new water main on the downstream side of the pumping station, and meter pit. And aeration, as we talked about. So if you look at the estimated O&M costs, you can see what we're looking at there. It's $10.83 per 100 cubic feet, or 748 gallons at a half MGD is what assumed, again, for average day. And you can see how much that is on an annualized cost basis. And at this point, going through those alternatives, I'm going to turn it over to Dave at Raftellus to go through some of those. What do those costs, capital cost estimates and O&M cost estimates mean in terms of the ratepayer within the district?
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Zach mentioned my name is Dave Fox, subconsultant through Woodard & Curran. Our firm is Raftellus. We're largest firm in the country, predominantly focused on rate and financial related matters for the utility industry with the predominant focus on water. These slides are going to get a little bit repetitive here, but what I'm going to try to go through is just a punchline of, get to the punchline here of, with all the technically feasible and operationally feasible alternatives that Zach just went through, what does that mean in terms of impacts to a typical ratepayer? We looked at the financial plan under each of these alternatives. We've developed 4 different financial planning models of understanding how those costs are going to change over time under each alternative, and what revenue increases would be required to support not only the changes in operational costs, but also the changes in capital costs, which are the biggest driver. So you can see here, just as an example, the columns on this chart are your revenue requirements, are your costs going out through 2030. Obviously, I don't think the world is going to end in 2030. Things will continue past that. But once we get outside of a 5-year window, the crystal ball gets really hazy. And so we wanted to just focus on what we think is coming in the next 5 years, with the predominance you can see there in 2030, that yellow component of that revenue requirement jumping up meaningfully, new debt service to start paying for the capital improvements that Zach just mentioned. And that will continue over time. What we're also trying to do here is, in the interim before that debt service hits, and before we actually need that amount of money, rather than delaying until 2029 and then seeing a significant rate increase to bring, or a revenue increase rather, both taxes and rates, to get your revenue up to where it needs to be in 2030, tried to have smoother, more even increases annually from 2025 out through 2030 over that same period, to ease into that, and then utilize, you can see in 27 through 29 where we have some surplus, that line going across where it's above the top of the charts, the bars rather. We can use those additional funds that we're generating in those years to offset some of the capital improvements in 2030 and beyond. Again, just to try to have a more equal increase. And so in this example, you can see here how a typical residential customer's annual bill is going to change over time, going from currently fiscal year 2024, around $711 per year. This is assuming a 60 CCF per year customer with a $300,000 assessed value. That same customer's bill would increase from $711 to $1,145 by 2030. That's about a 61% increase over that next 5 years. It's about 8.25% increase every single year, and it amounts to about $434 for this typical residential customer.
How much? I'm sorry.
I'm going to get there. I got a slide on that in a
okay.
little bit, but it was about a $434 from 2024 to 2030, or 61% increase.
For the average customer?
Your average customer, yep. Now, obviously, the district has some autonomy in how it's going to recover those additional revenues. We're showing the need here for about 61% more revenue from 2024 through 2030. How you collect that, whether that be through rates or taxation, obviously is going to impact your customers differently. What we've assumed for this is just maintaining the existing proportion that you have coming from rates and taxes, and it's just going to go up proportionately through 2030. But obviously that would be something you could continue to look at and see if there's a better way of collecting those revenues to maybe lessen customer impacts. I told you these are going to get repetitive. So what I'm going to do is, these are all in your packets, you have them. I'm going to jump to this slide here, which is really difficult to see from where I'm standing, at least. I apologize, but you can see that on your paper in front of you. This is showing for each alternative 1 through 4, what the average revenue increases would be by alternative from 2025 through 2030. What the 2024 bill is currently, $711, again, for that typical residential customer. What the 2030 bill would be for that typical residential customer under each alternative. I told you before, alternative 1, $1,145, or about a $434 increase from 2024 to 2030, about 61%. And then if we look at alternative 2, you can see that's about an 80% increase over that same period of time for that typical residential customer. Alternative 3, a 54% increase, and alternative 4, lowest, although your operating expenses are increasing, much less with regard to capital improvements, and that by having a lot less necessary funding of capital, it's significantly reducing the amount of increase you need for this revenue requirements here. But what we're showing in terms of, now, I don't think this should be the ultimate end-all be-all of making a decision of what you're doing in terms of the alternative. I think there's other things that Zach went through from an operational perspective, from an autonomy perspective. But if we're looking solely at what the impacts would be to your ratepayers over the 4 alternatives that we have modeled for you and explained, or Zach went through already throughout this presentation, alternative 4 results in the lowest impact to a typical residential customer. And we could say that would certainly be the case for every one of the district's customers. Obviously, the dollar amounts are just going to be different if it's a higher assessed value or higher or lower consumption. But it'll be still approximately a 32% increase there compared to alternative 2, which is the highest of about an 80% increase from 2024 to 2030. Does that make sense? I know there's a lot of numbers on this screen, and I went through that quickly. But again, trying to distill this down into tangible, what is a customer going to have to pay to support any one of these alternatives? Now, obviously, Zach mentioned this earlier, bills are going to continue to increase. There's no way around that. Every single one of my clients that I'm working with, just by inflationary impacts and the need for new and replacement of infrastructure, especially when you're dealing with water quality concerns, PFAS, lead and copper rules, things like that, all bills are going up. To put it into perspective for you, water bills have increased by about 5% every single year for the last 20 years or so across the country. And where that alternative 4 is showing approximately a 5% increase every single year, with the high end being alternative 2, about double that at 10.25%. Zach, turn it back over to you.
When you said 5%, are you talking year after year it's 5%, or
Yes.
collectively it's 5%?
Year after year, in that example, would be a 5% or 4.75 to be exact, every single year, starting in 2025 out through 2030.
So it compounds.
It would compound to about a 32% increase from today through 2030.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Zach, I have one question.
Yeah.
PFAS, to get rid of the waste after we take the PFAS
Yep.
out. Is that included in this?
Yeah, so some of the PFAS O&M, that's where that's living as part of the O&M and maintenance.
Saying that the high end is 2,400
24,
pounds per million gallons pump.
right?
Low end is 16.
Okay. We'll take that feedback and see if we can look at whether it encapsulates all of it. But yeah, it is PFAS being. I mean, I think in the alternative 2, which would be the good, the most amount of water that you'd have access to. I think it was like $75,000 annually. So yeah, 2,400 per million gallons served per day. Yeah, right. So that cost is we do envision efficiencies as more companies get out in the marketplace. But yeah, right now there's a limited supply of number of available. But we'll revisit that and make an update if needed on the report. Thanks. So if anything, that's going to drive O&M costs a little more.
Right.
So just to drive into the recommendation on which of these 4 alternatives we think best suits where the district is currently sitting. From a cost perspective, so the Somerset supply was the least in total in total capitalized cost. It was second most in O&M costs. Really driving from that rate and additionally that from a hydraulics perspective, utilizing that existing connectivity between the 12-inch interconnection and the William Street tank provides a great conduit for implementation. So between those two, alternative 4 is really where we're recommending if any of these alternatives would be considered to move forward with. What we will say as part of this is, we want the district to be able to source the most amount of water possible. So this alternative is contingent upon, being able to source over 1 MGD through the Water Management Act permitting process. And like I said, getting rid of some of those well sources that are currently within the Taunton River Basin and being able to potentially have a higher withdrawal from Somerset than 1 MGD. The next one is alternative 2, the Brook Street well purchase. This is the highest in terms of capital cost, but we feel as though it provides the district with the flexibility it needs for future growth and controlling all of its own sources. It does have its limitations in terms of cost, but now that source is within the town of Dighton and can be utilized for the remainder. And if PFAS treatment needed, it's going to be at one location as opposed to 2 locations within the system. Lastly, or I guess the last 2, alternative 3 is the Taunton Supply. They are a large water system and there is capacity there. There's some challenges in terms of installing a new water main about 24,000 feet. But if an alternative 3 was considered, we would hope that, and noted in our report that, the other interconnection be looked at too, with more information that comes from the Taunton model, to be able to look at maybe potential operational or, maybe upsizing some pumps in the Taunton system that could help, the district source more water in the high service area right off William Street. Right off Route 44. And then lastly, alternative 1, no action. We considered this one as no action because of the current development moratorium within the town, need for PFAS treatment, and other issues associated with not going with another outside source. What I will say as part of these alternatives, again, we looked at these as part of wholesale implementation. There are things that can be done in terms of blending and blending that could be done if one were to be considered or another. But in terms of keeping it a way that can be digestible and understandable by everyone, we kept it to the wholesale alternatives. So that's the real recommendation in terms of outside water source and efficiency and regionalization that could be seen from neighboring water supplies. In terms of consolidation of the district and the town and the district, we found through our interview process, our preliminary data request, that there's no significant advantages or cost savings that would come out of a consolidation. And just to go through them quickly, we believe that the financial interaction that is currently going on between the district and town, treasurer collector and the assessor, is sufficient and would be pretty much replicated on a day-to-day basis within town hall. In terms of infrastructural interaction between the district and town, police, fire, highway, I've mentioned this a few times, they are coordinating on a day-to-day basis and utilizing but if manpower is needed, they reach out to each other. There's a strong connection, I believe, between the Dighton Water District and those departments in town. And then just a scenario where systems are consolidated would provide an additional level and potentially redundant level of governance over the water district, and because it would still maintain another level of board of commissioners under the selectmen in that case. And then just the final, sort of hitting it home just with the number of reasons is there are some legal implications associated with those minor efficiencies we could see from some sort of consolidation or soft improvements I've been referring to them as, with the, amending or redacting the Chapter 359 Acts of 1950 and the Chapter 68 of Acts of 2012 that are in Massachusetts acts of those specific years. We don't think there's no room for improvement, though. The town and district can operate as separate entities, but there are some things throughout this interview process that we saw could be improved upon. And I think really to go through them, one thing that we saw is there was a long list of indirect costs and this person's responsible for this person, and everyone knows it here, and it's great, and it seems like it's working great. But there was a level of, we didn't see a formal document on those indirect costs. It's built into budgets, right? There's information there, but establishing a workshop between the district and the town on indirect costs, and reviewing those every 5 years or so to make sure they're still existing, and having that workshop to sort of say, get all the costs that are potentially out there, including the stipends for the assessor and collector, and just setting that document as a formalized document issued between the district and the town, so all concerns are heard, is one recommendation. Next, on the planning side, really 2 and 3, establishing a formal review process for planned development work within the town roads, and this really can be applied to both districts within town, such that representatives from the town and applicable districts can review. So having a space where public, the superintendent or the highway superintendent can look at documents that are coming in for planned projects and check off, yes, we've reviewed, next step. So as far as planning, there's oversight on both parts, right? And interests and obligations are satisfied as both parties. Number 3 is establishing a district commissioner or representative to intermittently attend the capital outlay committee meetings as applicable or as needed, to increase district awareness of capital projects within the town, and for the district to be able to provide input on some things. Some of these projects we heard going on may require more water than the district can obtain or provide. So should those projects even be considered as part of future work is the question. So being able to have that early as part of outlay committee meetings seems like a potential improvement. And then 4 and 5, we've talked a lot about neighboring water suppliers today. There's going to be a lot of talks and communications if any of those are considered in future as part of future work. We think that those meetings should be attended by representatives from the district and town jointly in tandem as an entity that are advocating for one another, and understanding that the long-term implications of a future water source will affect both parties. So serving as advocates, and entertaining those discussions, those negotiation periods as one entity. Separate systems, one entity in terms of negotiating, because it affects both your residents and your customers. So the last one, this is a small one. I was just thinking about it the other day. I was on the town's website, perusing through, getting information as I could. And there's no mention of the district or another supplier on the town's website. So if you're you just moved to Dighton, right? And you have a water, I have public water, but where's that public water coming from? Just even putting the contact information of the Dighton Water District, the North Dighton Fire District, or even potentially the town of Somerset, to be able to know, okay, this is where my water bill is, and if I have a complaint, I can go talk to them. So that's a small one, but just in terms of something that I think for the town's benefit, for the residents' benefit, something that could be
It's
easily
small, but it's
implemented.
big.
Yeah. So that's all we have here today. I know there's a lot of information. We certainly appreciate everyone's time. But at this time, we could take any questions. Yeah.
It says assuming $6.50 per thousand for Somerset. Do you know what the custom is?
I think that's what they're paying. It's fixed. Yeah. That we assumed the retail rate. We didn't want to assume low. We wanted to assume the high.
Water and sewer or just water?
I think that's just water. Yeah.
That's a very conservative assumption
Yeah.
because If we went through what I would refer to as a cost of service study or an allocated cost of service study to determine how much it costs to Somerset or for Somerset to provide you wholesale water service, it's going to be less on a per 1,000 gallon basis than it is for them to provide service to their retail customers. They might not accept that, and they're going to say, no, you're going to pay what our customers are paying. But from a purely cost justified standpoint, it would be something less than that.
Well, they're providing media service, they're providing.
Yeah, the distribution system, all the,
They're just
yeah,
providing us with water.
that's exactly right.
We, again, that's why we say that the rate that's negotiated, thank you, Dave, is super important as part of this. We wanted to take what we had in the interview and project that onto our alternatives and not assume less. But it can improve from there, as part of future work.
You know what they paid, Swansea pays now?
I do not know the answer to that. Why does anybody?
Town of Swansea, what they pay?
We haven't negotiated anything yet.
No,
I'm
what
on the
town,
board
no, what town of Swansea pays Somerset
For
for
water?
their water, I mean,
It's still under negotiation.
Not
still
yet.
in
Oh, yeah, it's still, yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I'm on the board in Swansea,
oh, okay.
so, but, we haven't negotiated yet. Dave's working on that now. So, the process is a long process.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And so a lot of that, just from Somerset's point of view, right? Like a lot, what they told us there, why do they have all this excess capacity, right? Well, what's the point? Well, and I encourage, we're going to be sending the report. We want to wait until we had this meeting and talked with everyone and got feedback. But we'll be sending the report in the next couple of days. But they have excess capacity, at least as it was told to us in the interview, was because of the power plants that have been recently removed,
Okay.
the Montauk Power and Brayton
Yeah.
Point Power. So that's a real reason for excess capacity in their system. So, in my opinion, if they have water and they want to sell it, why not?
Yeah,
Right?
I know. Yeah, Brighton Point used over 1 million gallons a day,
Right.
right there, so.
Big plant.
They used 1 million gallons a day?
Yep.
Mark, do you have any questions?
I do. Tony's been waiting.
Go ahead, Tony.
I think he failed to address a couple of things.
Okay.
What about the North Dighton Fire District, which is a water district?
Yep.
Why don't you give us a report on what they're doing?
So,
And second, a lot of Dighton is serviced right now by the town of Somerset.
agreed. Yeah, along Route 138.
Yeah, you should make that public.
Oh no, yeah. So that they are certain.
You're giving us all these stats, you didn't give us no stats on how does North Dighton operate the way they do with two or three people? When Dighton's got probably 11 or 12.
Yeah.
What happens to the cost when we start buying them? There's a reduction right there. You don't have to have the personnel.
Right. Operators. Right, and that's why on some of the O&M costs we remove some.
You're trying to sell the town.
All right, Tony, let me answer
All
his.
the residents want to pay for the problem that the district has. If that's the case, the district should be turned over to the town. You should do away with this district, this Dighton Water District.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Then you wouldn't have to have commissioners. The selectmen would have control over it.
Yeah.
As current. Yeah. And the one.
And I agree. I'm
Tony,
saying this- I'm
Tony,
saying this-
let him answer his question, the question that you comment, that he starts to talk and then you interrupt him again. Let him finish his conversation.
So the study was between two systems as it was set up. Tony, it was the district and the town when it was set up. That's how it was put together. As the largest purveyor, I understand what you're saying. There are other parameters to consider. You got the town of Somerset's water main that runs up Route 138, and then you have the North Dighton Fire District that approximately has 400 to 500 water service connections. There's I don't know if you heard me throughout this meeting. I said the districts oftentimes because I would say there's three districts really in Dighton, right? And some of these coordination items are not just specific to them. However, the study in general was looking at the Dighton Water District and their efficiencies in terms of future work that has to be performed and what's available in the nearby area.
I've been pitching this for about 4 or 5 years. It's cheaper for this town to buy the water than to try to correct the problems that they have. Because they've had a moratorium, it'll be 4 years. 4 years this July, and nothing has been done about it. gonna go with a moratorium in this town.
Yeah, I hear you.
We gotta do something. We gotta buy water, and that's the cheapest one.
Do you know what the North Dighton district charges for 1,000 gallons of water?
It's like $10.
We could,
It's $10, and it's actually more than what we approximated for. It's $10.83 per 100 cubic feet. I mean, per.
From Somerset. That's an estimate.
they don't know that's gonna be, no. We don't know that.
This is all just based on the interviews and then what the respective towns.
Plus infrastructure, you gotta put a booster
Absolutely.
station,
What happens to
testing. So
What happens to your treatment plant?
it's not just buy water, that's the end of it, and you think it's cheaper.
What happens to your treatment plant if they stop buying water? Shut it down?
If they go with the buy water all the time, yeah, they shut the treatment plant down, but
But there's
better off using our water, and we can sell less to the customers than to go out, unless you can get a great deal.
right.
That's great, but.
You would still
They're
have
not
the
giving the water-
infrastructure.
They're not giving the water away,
North Dayton's paying for that water.
and it's gonna go up and up
It's
and up.
I believe based on their wholesale rate, and you can look it up. I think it's on the town of Taunton or city of Taunton ordinance page. But I believe it's all based on a volumetric amount, how much you use in a certain month or whatever. But what we used as part of this was $10.83 per 100 cubic feet, which is
That's what
approximately
they're paying?
correct.
Per 100 cubic feet?
Yeah.
So it's only 748.
Exactly.
So
It's
like
actually right.
double the $6.
Right.
$6.50. So we're looking at 12,
Yeah, but still,
$13.
I mean, the quality of water, I'm not thinking is nothing compared to Salt Lake. I mean, it's far superior. Far superior than Salt Lake. Some days I can flush a toilet on High Street, all right? And if I don't flush it twice, I got a stain in it. All right? Why? Because your quality of water is lousy.
Well, it meets the
Now you
standards.
want
It
the
meets the
whole town
standards.
to pay for it.
It meets the standards, so I wouldn't say it's.
I do know that,
I wouldn't say
in-
that.
I've seen, and you know, Somerset has all this water, but from what I understand, their quality is, I've seen pictures and it's like rust water, so I don't know.
What's that, Somerset?
Yeah,
I just want to speak to one thing that was said too.
maybe where you are.
Sorry, Tony, I just want to speak to one thing. All these, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, all these alternatives that were considered in the financial implications, those are considering the impacts of the Dighton Water District's budget, not the whole town's budget. So that's everyone who's a Dighton Water District customer is paying for those improvements, not the town. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I have some questions,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. I want to thank you for your presentation, and one of the questions about North Dighton Fire, I believe when this opportunity came available, the town kind of put it out to all three districts, and I believe the Water District was the only district that was amenable to this, so I want to thank you guys, and, you know, just listening, you know, we learned some options, and so I think that's why we didn't focus so much on the North Dighton Fire District,
Right.
was I don't believe we're amenable. I'm on the electric district, I know we didn't take advantage of the opportunity, so, again, I appreciate that. So looking at alternative 4, water supply from Somerset, is most of the cost savings there because they meet the new standard for PFAs?
Actually, I left my sheet over there that has the specific numbers, but they are currently under there's several, the new MCL has several different components to it, but the two that are impacting, the one that's impacting district sources is PFOA, I'm sorry. And they meet the PFOA, MCL, and all the MCLs. They are below the new maximum contaminant levels provided in the EPA new proposed rule, or not proposed rule, new rule.
At this time.
At this time.
And that's Taunton.
I've been saying
Now, you said Taunton also.
So,
and Taunton, some percent in Taunton.
Changes.
right, so we have most savings because we meet a standard that is really subject to change. This is like a new science and it's changing.
Yeah.
Can't predict it.
But to be fair, like to be fair, if they have an issue, they're gonna treat it at the treatment plant.
Right.
Right.
They're not gonna put a packaged treatment plant. That's why these efficiencies are seen from a regional level, because you have one larger treatment plant that has a larger customer base that can potentially source water out, and have to implement it in any case that if they were to do it. So, yeah.
Plus, they're talking about giving low interest loans, some forgiveness, loan forgiveness.
Oh, yeah, on PFAS.
For us, being such a small community,
Yep.
they're gonna have to do that, so they're talking about that also.
Yeah.
So this numbers could change.
Oh,
This
agreed.
is only, what, a month and a half that
Yeah.
PFAS regulation came in. So,
It's it dropped literally in the middle of this report.
Wow.
But it ended up being a very big focus of it because it's just such a sweeping rule. Considering, if you were to consider just without those, maybe, the recommendations, I think overall, you still have some issues associated with, water supply, right, on alternative one, and then two, just getting water to where it needs to be in town, or purchase costs for a well site. There's still issues, but a main driving factor in a lot of this has been the PFAS issue. Yeah.
I have a question. What would you say would be, through litigation, be the percentage that a town would get from, like, lawsuit? Because I'm sure that all these companies,
For PFAS, there's been stuff out there for a long time now. I think you had to get in early. I can't answer that question accurately.
Yeah.
can't talk
Yeah.
about it right
No.
now.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay.
I can't. I don't know, to be
Okay.
frankly honest with you. But there has been stuff that's been going on for years regarding that stuff. Go ahead,
And
Eric.
then Brook Street wells, one reason why we haven't tried to purchase it, or they wanted a lot of money and
Yep.
had PFAS.
Right.
So we're gonna spend $6 million, there's a number they're looking at.
Right.
And then
Way
another
too
$6
much.
million for 250 gallons a minute, or
Yeah.
300 gallons a minute. It's like,
That's,
we have to see what we can do.
Sure.
It's just not, throw out $6 million, then it's a waste. And if they decommission it, then maybe we can do something after that.
Right.
And, we'll see what we can do. We're working on it, but it's not a quick fix on any of these things.
no.
And then now with these new regulations, it's strapping us, you only have 2,000 customers, so.
Sure.
How are we gonna say, hey, if I had 15,000 customers, I could put a little here, a little there, everybody take a little piece of it, but
Yep.
2,000, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Ask people, you see these increases.
They're outrageous.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
And they're gonna get worse.
Well, and
It's not, you buy water, it's not gonna stay at $12 per thousand. 5 years from now,
Oh, right.
it's gonna be more. So, everything goes up. It's not a simple fix.
Yep.
We're trying our best to do what we can,
Sure.
but, it's not easy. I know people wanna build, they got land, they wanna do things with it. It's a tough spot to do right now.
Right.
We're trying.
Where does the water come from now? I didn't think I heard that in this report.
Groundwater, mostly wells, all wells. From
For
us,
where you guys get your water?
all wells.
Is it all inside of Dighton, or you guys purchase from
All
other?
in Dayton.
All of the water currently is in Dighton?
Yep.
Oh, perfect, okay.
If you
Great.
if you look at
There's a picture there, shows.
yeah, if you
I did
look
see
at
all the wells. I didn't know if was all of our sources.
It would be nice to get the Brook Street, but, you can get it for nothing, it's 6 million, just to
Right.
start off, and then it's 2,500 per million pumps. To get rid of it, and that's only gonna go up.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. How long are, in general, these intermunicipal agreements, like if we bought water from Taunton or Somerset, how long are those agreements usually?
They can do whatever you want, 10, 20 years.
I'd say on average,
10 maybe?
maybe more than that.
20,
I've seen 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
I'd probably average, I'd say 20, 25 years.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it's not it's not uncommon in New England to have regional water supply. I mean, look at MWRA, Providence, not too far from here, supplies half of Rhode Island.
Situate resident, Providence supplies
Yeah.
Tons.
So it's not Fall River supplies portions of Freetown and Westport,
Westport, right?
so it's not uncommon.
Do you have anything else right now?
I have one more, just a moratorium comment. How does that happen? Is that just from not enough supply, basically?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
watering lawns and consumption in the summer, so
Okay.
it's been working pretty good, even with the
Right.
different days with everybody. It's been,
And that was a joint effort between the town and the district when it was laid out.
You're still letting them, water lawns,
excuse me?
you're still letting them water lawns.
Well,
So why you gonna?
We're trying
Every
to,
time you got a problem, Randy, every time you got a problem, you're dumping thousands
so we're
of
gonna
gallons
tell
on the
everybody,
ground.
you can't water the lawn, or they can't wash their car, or
Yeah.
they come to the town and they purchase to live in the town, they've been here for 30 years, and then all of a sudden you tell them, nobody can use water anymore. Because somebody wants to build a
When they
house.
did the moratorium, that's what it was all about. What happened to this 40-foot well, this new 40-foot well you put in the ground? That was gonna solve the problem.
You wanna see it?
Yeah,
They're doing it now, it should be in another 2 weeks, we should have it.
in operation. You gonna be bumping, bro?
We've had problems with the supply chain,
Yeah, and
COVID,
I'm gonna tell you, as a businessman,
yeah.
lived in the town all my life, as a taxpayer, the cheapest way for that district is to buy it. Buy the water. I'm gonna tell you,
That's your
I'll crunch
opinion.
numbers with
I don't
anybody,
know.
and I'll tell you, the cheapest way for this district to come out of what the problems they got is to buy the water.
Lenny, you have something?
Regarding the Somerset quality of water, when Brayton Point went down, Somerset's water capacity, filtration went down. Ernie, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're not filtering at a certain level, it has a negative impact on your water quality, correct?
Well, the water's not moving through the mains like it usually does.
Right.
So now you got more detention, more time, more chances for THMs, HAAs, and that's probably why they have it in the THM district. I'm not totally familiar with Somerset's.
And that's why Somerset is trying to sell water, to get them back up from the loss that they had with Brayton Point, which will raise the quality of the water. The other issue is, about 2 years ago, transition Baker administration, Healy administration, Senator Rodriguez and Representative Pat Haddad were really pushing a regional agreement. My question is, they're pushing it, are they also going to, the state going to provide money to help make regional agreements happen? And if that's the case, then would that help make a Somerset tie-in more attractive?
I know there are such grants like, MVP, municipal vulnerability preparedness grants and grants like the one that did this study that help push, help the planning process and in some cases help the construction process. To say I know of any specific grants right now that would do that sort of work, I can't say. But yeah, call your local legislator. Oh, and I should have reached to Mike earlier.
We have looked at not water regionalization, but sewer regionalization before, and Representative Haddad was, as you pointed out, a firm advocate of that, and she was on the front line trying to find money. There's never a guarantee, but one option right now that's still available now, it may be closed in the future, is the congressional earmarks or the congressional discretionary spending. That would be a fairly attractive project for that type of spending. So there are options for grants right now. The windows open and close all the time.
The last is a comment that developers may not like to hear. But we have heard it, you've heard it previous couple of selectmen's meetings, that there is a concern by a segment of the population in Dighton about growth. Keeping things the way they are does slow growth. That's something to think about when you decide the direction you wanna go. Where do you wanna see growth go? The moratorium has helped greatly to slow growth. Something to think about.
Thing on grants, I think right now there's some sewer grants out there. I think Mike contacted me about the moratorium, and I told him, he told me it was for a sewer grant, so. But I think a lot of the stuff right now, they're holding off because of PFAS, so they're not getting out a lot of money.
Yeah,
So
it's a fair point.
the small towns are gonna be hurting for the
Yeah.
PFAS, so I think they're gonna, future, they're gonna be giving some grants out, some money for that, so that will help some of us out. I don't think they're giving out a lot of money for anything
Yeah,
right now because of that.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the options?
Somerset would probably, or the Brook Street well, if we could get the Brook Street well, but not for
Not for
$6
$6
million.
million, we're not.
If we got that, you know, somebody, eminent domain or something, or cheaper, yeah, that might be a good option.
Yep.
That water's not too bad,
Okay.
just, it's the PFAS.
Yeah, and if you run that raw water main, is there a potential that, you just have one, you're gonna need one PFAS facility at your existing treatment plant. That's why, although it was the highest capital cost, we thought, from talks with individuals, and I think there's a general consensus that it's important to folks here to have control of their water. But also in the same light, like, there are two fairly large water sources around here.
Just the cost of putting a water main in, it's like $2 million per mile.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy numbers.
Yeah.
5 years ago it was $1 million.
Yep.
Now it's $2 million. It just
Yeah.
costs, everything just goes up and up and up, and it just, so you're looking at $6 million for a raw water main, or $6 million to put a PFAS, so
Right.
you're better off probably having it at one place like that, right?
Yep.
Than two different places.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they new to add, or you had one more comment, you said?
No, I just really kind of walked in just thinking of the Brook Street well and kind of keeping control, and, but I will say, I just want to thank you guys because this opened my eyes to the other options, and there are some, it's nice that at least we have options.
You're better off keeping in your own, supply your own water.
Right.
But if you have to go outside and get some, Swansea's doing it, and come to a point where there's no other options in Swansea. We've tried everything to get water, and there's nothing out there now. They're looking at the reservoir, so you
Yep.
might be able to get that, but it's something different, but.
Yeah,
so
we're always going
hopefully
for
we
the
can-
same
we
thing.
can- we
Did
can
you
work
have something
out
else
here.
too?
I'd just like to know, how many users do you have using Somerset water right now?
We did not collect the user data for the Somerset Water
How many
Department.
users do you have in North
I
Dayton?
don't think there's many.
It's 400, I know.
You got all 138, you got Hot Street, you got Brook Street?
Yeah, there's not that many.
It's 400 in North Dayton,
Yeah, 400.
400 people purchasing?
400 service connections. So probably
And that
like
water's
12.
coming from Taunton, right?
What was that?
That water's coming from Taunton.
Correct. Yeah, in terms of I do not have the Somerset customer base data. Sure, we could probably figure it out though.
Well, I'd like to thank Woodward and Curran and.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
Thank you so
You
much.
guys did a tremendous job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your-
Very informative.
And just
Definitely.
if there's any other comments, we'll take what we got today's Ernie's comment on what he's seeing for PFAS costs. And if there's any other comments, feel free to, I know Karen has my contact information. If
Yep.
there's anything that you want to send over our way for comments on what you saw today,
Sure.
it'd be great in the next couple of days just so we can finalize the draft report.
Yep.
In terms of next steps, this grant does need to be finalized by June 30th.
Right. Just 2 weeks.
So,
Do you need a vote from us?
what was that?
Does that require a vote? Word or?
No.
No, okay, so that's the that's on your part to close this out in 2 weeks?
We're gonna work with, Mr. Purcell, and I think he has to,
Right.
forgive me if I'm wrong, I don't know if we're submitting that or if he's submitting.
The report needs to be submitted by June 30th.
Yeah, but I
From-
believe the
from
town
us,
has to
right?
submit it.
Yeah,
though.
from our town administrator.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, like I don't think we can submit on your behalf.
Right,
Yeah.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Well, this is a review, discuss, and act, but we really don't have anything to vote on, because they're going to take our comments, come back with a final project, and then Jim has to submit the final for the grant.
Perfect. I agree with that. Yes, sounds good. Motion to adjourn?
Seconded, and, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Cable.